Stress is a really big topic. There are a million different ways to look at stress. You could look at your diet. You could look at how much sleep you're getting. You could look at how much water you're drinking. You could look at the people around you. You could look at so many different societal and physiological sources of stress that it can be a very terrifying and nebulous concept. So what I want to talk about today is how to manage stress from a shadow integration perspective. Because there's a lot of ways that you add to the stress in your environment that you don't need to. So I'm going to talk about the 3 core things that people unconsciously bring into their lives that bring in way more stress than they need, and what to actually do about it from a shadow integration perspective. So let's get into it. So the first question that I have, and I recommend getting a journal out for this because you're going to want to write a lot of this stuff out, because doing all this in your head isn't really going to work. The whole point is to get this shit out, because a huge part of the thing about stress is that it stays in your body until you give it an outlet. So make sure you have a journal for all these questions that I'm about to ask you. So the first main source of stress that I want to talk about is just how you relate to whatever is required of you. You know, it's like, because this is interesting to me, because as an entrepreneur, I had to do a lot of really stressful things that I didn't really know how to do, and they were stressful for me. I had to look at, how do I view those things? Do I view them as inherently hard and stressful and difficult? Or do I view them as fun and engaging and entertaining and things that I just love doing? And it took me a little while to get to the point where I could see them as fun and engaging. But the thing that I want to highlight here is there are ways that you can look at things, even things you love doing, in a way that makes them hard and seem shitty. Like, I love helping people, but the moment my life and my income and my sustainability is dependent on my ability to help people, it can become stressful because it gets tied to my survival instincts and my survival drives and all these different things, and it makes it so much more complicated than just doing a thing that I like. So even if you're doing something that you love and the thing that you're looking at is stressing you out, it could be something that you love, but you look at it as inherently difficult because of some context that you've added to it. Whether you're trying to do it professionally and now the idea of like surviving off of it stresses you the fuck out, I don't know. Maybe you just view the thing as bigger than you. Maybe you view it is inherently hard or difficult. Maybe somebody told you at some point that all of life and all of work needs to be hard and difficult, and therefore you apply that to things that doesn't really need to have that applied to. So the first thing is just, how do you even relate to that which is being required of you? Right? You could see it as a fun and engaging and amazing thing, or you could see it as this really horrible, terrible, difficult, stressful slog of bullshit that you just have to get through for one reason or another. And if you get really clear about how you're viewing these things, you can start to get an idea of what might need to be shifted so that you can start to bring some healthier perspectives and look at things in a way that'll kind of help you a little bit better. So the next thing that I want to take a look at is, how do you view yourself in relationship to the things that you want to do? Again, like I said before, I'm an entrepreneur, and so in order to start this business, I had to have some kind of big vision in mind. I had somewhere that I wanted to get to. And to be completely honest with you, it terrified me for a very long time. It's only been somewhat recently that I can really feel empowered and embodied in the sense that, like, yeah, I am the motherfucker that can take this thing all the way to like millions of dollars and help everybody around the world. Like, it's taken me a long time in order to get to be that person, because as I started this whole journey, I didn't see myself as equal to it. You know, I started coaching people because I realized that I'd made big changes in my life that I wanted to help other people make. But I still saw myself as an unlovable, terrible, horrible piece of shit. So as I tried to go help people, I was trying to help people from the perspective that I was a horrible, terrible, unlovable piece of shit. So you can imagine how marketing might be under those perspectives. You can imagine how trying to tell people about how great my coaching is when half of me says that I'm an unlovable, terrible, incompetent schmuck. Like, it's hard to try and do these things when there's a part of you telling you that you are not equal to it, you are not capable of it, you are not whatever. So the first one is to look at how you're relating to that which is required of you, and the second one is to look at how do you view yourself in relationship to that which is required of you. Because if you can see what you're looking at as possible and fun and maybe challenging, but definitely possible, and you see yourself as equal to the task, then a lot of the times the things that you see as stressful and terrible will actually become fun and enjoyable and will give you energy rather than taking it from you. And a good example of this is like video games, right? Because it's like, in life, It's very hard to find people that can just try over and over and over and over again in spite of however many failures and just keep going until they win. But when it comes to video games, it's not actually all that hard because there's lower stakes. It's not gonna fucking matter. If you fail at a game, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It's like the context is different. So if you can go into something like a video game where there's no threat or whatever, and you can try over and over and over again and fail over and over again and be like, fuck yeah, I finally got the thing. The only thing that's different between the video game and real life is context. So if you can take a look at the context that you view life in as different from some other area where these challenges aren't scary, you can start to get an even better idea of how you're looking at this thing that makes it seem way harder and stressful than it has to be. So the third one, and this is honestly the trickiest one, this is the most common one that I hinted at earlier, and this is the way in which you motivate yourself to do these things. Now this is tricky because it can often play off of the first two. So I've coached people from not having a lot of money at all to people who are extremely wealthy. And I noticed this happening all along the spectrum. Extremely wealthy, successful people have this problem. Extremely not wealthy people have this problem. And the problem is how you motivate yourself to go and do the things you want to do. And like I said, it plays off of the other two. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean. So what I see happen more often than not, this seems to be so common in so many people that it blows my mind. And it's this idea that most people motivate themselves from a sense of lack. I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, this isn't enough, blah, 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 blah. Therefore, I have to go and do stuff in order to become good enough, in order to make this good enough, in order to do blah, 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 blah. And the thing is, it's like that does kind of work, right? Like if you know who Alex Hormozi is, he constantly talks about being able to build his $100 million business from a sense of lack. Right? So you can fucking do it. Almost every rich person you can think of probably did that on some level. However, usually by the time they get to the point where they have all the money and they can't fucking enjoy it because they're so stressed out, that's usually when they hire me. And this also stops other people because for me, it was hard for me to even start to develop any kind of wealth or anything like that because I would motivate myself in the same way, right? So it's like, it's hard to get yourself to success, and even if you get to success, it's hard to enjoy it if what's underneath the if what's underneath the surface is this inherent sense that I'm not good enough and I just kind of suck and I have to do things feverishly in order to fill some void and make myself feel like I'm good enough. Now that'll work for some people. Some people can motivate themselves that way and accomplish incredible things. Other people will be smashed by that and not be able to accomplish anything at all. But the main thing that's important is to understand how you are looking at this so that you can start to make some important changes. Right? It's like if you are looking at yourself as inherently bad or inherently unworthy or whatever, and you have to feverishly, get jacked or like get a lot of money or be the hottest girl or whatever it is you think you got to do in order to prove yourself, that's stressing you out because what's really happening is you're trying desperately to prove that you are not this thing that you already believe yourself to be. So the way around that is to own, okay, I believe I am something. And I am trying desperately to try and make that not true. However, by doing that, I am fighting against the fact that some part of me does already believe it is true. In order to get through this, whatever you're fighting, you have to admit that some part of you already believes it, right? And then once you accept that some part of you believes it, because again, I had to go through this too. I told myself I was an unlovable, terrible, awful, horrible piece of shit. And so every single time I wanted to motivate myself, for the first few years, I would basically whip myself into shape, whether it was going to gym, putting out content, getting on the phone, whatever it was, I would whip myself into doing it because that's what good people did, and I was bad, and so I had to do what the good thing was. But once I was able to really love that part of myself and see myself as inherently good, see myself as inherently worthwhile, then suddenly I was able to motivate myself just because I wanted to do the things. I like getting on calls and coaching people. I like sitting here and talking about this shit. I like making content. I like doing everything in my business and I genuinely enjoy it, which is why I picked this business in the first place. But I had to deal with both the way I saw what I had to do, how I saw myself in relationship to what I had to do, as well as how I motivated myself. So now I wake up and I'm excited. I like my life. I'm like, yeah, okay, what are we going to do today? Like, what cool things are going to happen? Who am I going to get to talk to? What ideas am I going to get to explore? Like, it's an adventure for me, where it used to be this really, really painful slog of just like feeling shame because I didn't want to do anything and then beating myself up for that so that I would go do things. And then that would just keep me in this cycle of stress where I'd put out a lot of shit and then I'd have to go run and hide, and it just sucked. But now I get to stay at this nice, even keel because I see that which I have to do as enjoyable. I see myself as worthy of it and capable of it. And I motivate myself by seeing everything that I can create and how much better I can make my life and how much better I can make myself, rather than working from some deficit that I'm trying desperately to fill that you ultimately can't fill because it's filled by a shitty belief that you can only change. So these are the three most common things that I find stress people out unnecessarily, just strictly from a shadow integration perspective. You know, like I said before, if you are getting stressed out a lot, like maybe drink some more water, maybe take a nap, make sure you're eating some good food, make sure you're walking around, getting exercise, getting some sunlight, make sure you're spending time with people that care about you and that are good for you. And if the stress continues, then start looking at all this other shit. Because most of the time stress is usually pretty easy. I fought against this for a really long time, but a huge part of my anxiety was just the fact that I wasn't getting that much exercise. I was dehydrated and didn't have a good diet. Fix those things and a whole lot of shit changes. But for everything that's left over after that, this stuff is going to be really helpful. I haven't really met anybody that didn't have to deal with some of this on some level, especially if you have big dreams for who you want to be and the kind of life you want to create. One of these three things will come into play at some point, regardless of your diet. So take a look at these things. Remember how you relate to that, what you have to do. Pay attention to how you see yourself in relationship to that, and then also pay attention to how you motivate yourself. Those three factors alone have the opportunity to either be this crushing, terrible, stressful, awful weight, or they can turn your life into an epic adventure where you get to create every day from a sense of wonder and joy and amazement. And so this is it. And if you want help with any of this shit, let me know. I have a free Discord channel where you can come in and talk to me about all of this. I'm in there every day. I've got a crew of moderators in there. They're all amazing. We've got almost like 500 people in there. Conversations are going all day about all different kinds of topics, and I'm in there to help every day. There's going to be a link below, and I also have a free shadow integration intro course if you want to get a better idea of how to integrate some of the concepts that I've talked about today. Links are going to be below for everything, but I'm Chris Orozco. I love you. I'll see you next time.
That's sick.